To start off today's show, our attention goes to East Clare and the story of dereliction. At this week's meeting of the Killaloe Municipal District, the issue of a pub in the heart of Whitegate that has fallen into disrepair was front and centre. Local councillor Pat Burke has called on Clare County Council to urgently address the condition of the former public house in the village's main street, describing the current state of the building as unacceptable. The council has confirmed the property is on the Derelict Sites Register, with levies now applying, and that it will be assessed this year under the government's Compulsory Acquisition Activation Programme. I'm glad to say I'm now joined by the Killaloe of the Killaloe Municipal District and the Whitegate Fine Gael councillor Pat Burke. Pat, you're very welcome to the show.
Good morning, Daragh.
Pat, a pub, a sentimental focal community place in every single village and town up and down the country. We all have our relatable stories of dereliction or something falling vacant for a couple of years at a time. Can you give us the background to this pub for those of us that maybe don't get the pleasure of passing through Whitegate too often? And
yes, Daragh.
What it meant?
I suppose if we go back to 30 years ago or thereabouts, we actually had 5 pubs operating in the village of Whitegate. A good tradition of socialising in Whitegate, I suppose, maybe like in plenty of other villages. But to think that there was 5 pubs actually doing business in Whitegate 30 years ago. This particular pub is in the centre of the village. This former pub, it closed in 1994, or there at the end of 1994. And was subsequently sold. And then the issue that I have here, I suppose, is then that somebody can come from anywhere and buy a property like this former pub with the licence, the trading licence or alcohol licence is removed from the premises and brought to wherever up the country, and the building is forgotten about then by the owners. You know, it's a policy that should, should never have been allowed, that people can come into areas, do this and then disappear. And it's in a lot of villages and towns all over the country, but I suppose talking about the Killaloe MD, there's major issues, for example over in Tulla as well, with dereliction, where owners, sometimes it's hard to find them even, the people who own these buildings, and they're forgotten about and left into disrepair. So it was purchased by a gentleman up in County Longford, as far as I understand. It's now owned by a company. Well, it's I have no problem in saying who it is because they applied for planning. It's Keogh Electrical Engineering Limited in Ranelagh in Dublin 6 is the registered address of the applicant who applied for planning permission. So that those people, and I don't know them, and the strange thing about it is, when people go for planning for a development or even for a one-off house, they would normally contact the local councillor seeking a bit of help maybe, or to put representations on the file and keep them updated on the planning as it proceeds and that. But I have never met these people, spoke to them, don't know them or anything like that, which is a bit strange. So really and truly they're playing the game of applying for planning, withdrawing the planning. There were bills now for the Derelict Sites levy, and as of this week, the property is for sale on daft.ie, I discovered yesterday, to prolong the, avoiding paying the levy or whatever. So it's very, very unsatisfactory. They applied in May 2023. That application was deemed invalid by the council. There wasn't enough information. They went back in again in September 2003 because the pressure was coming on, and I kept the pressure on to get it on the Derelict Sites Register. And I have to compliment Carmel Green and her team in the County Council, who must be pulling their hair out with these derelict properties all over County Clare. I think she has something like 200 properties on her list, trying to contact owners and trying to get things moved on. So it was moved on by getting on the Derelict Sites levy. The owners have been billed. Now they decide to put it up for sale. And when they had the last planning application in, the council were looking favourably.
I'm sorry, Pat, there for a second. And look, I know obviously this has been on the Derelict Sites Register for some time, and you've spoken about the company. It is just important to say, naturally, they might have an opposing view to that. They're not here to answer questions themselves, but just on that, do we know what the nature of these planning applications even were? Was it to turn them into residential properties or to repurpose them?
Yes, I was just coming to that, Daragh, actually. And but I suppose what I'm saying here is, and the reason I mentioned the company in Ranelagh, Dublin 6, it reminds me of, I was out on a farm trip in France last year, and just briefly to say that if you're farming out in France and you put your farm up for sale, there's a 5-kilometre radius ring-fenced to offer it to local people. If there's nobody interested, they extend to a 10-kilometre radius, which I think is a great policy where local people can stay and buy properties in their local area. In this case, somebody up the Midlands, as I think, bought it and moved it on or whatever to this electrical engineering company in Ranelagh, who I have never met, which is strange, and I think you know where I'm coming from there. They applied again in September 23. The planning authority looked favourably on building 5 houses, demolishing the building, and it's a big site, enough almost half an acre in the centre of the village, built 5 houses, and we were all excited about that because there are 2 issues here. One is the issue of dereliction, and the other is the lack of housing and rural depopulation, and the difference that those 5 houses would make to the village of Whitegate, preferably an affordable housing scheme where locals could buy houses at an affordable price. We may have enough social housing in the village, so that's where I'm coming from here, and I've no problem in naming the people or the people who are just flouting the system, I suppose, is what I'm saying here, you know.
So as you describe it there, Pat, and look, it goes without saying again, for anybody that doesn't know and hasn't been able to visit Whitegate, lovely picturesque part of the world, nice, calm, peaceful, and obviously anytime then you have a place and there's overgrowth on it, it becomes a bit of an eyesore. Is this a loophole that's been going on for a bit too long in the Irish system that hasn't been tackled, that you can get out of paying this fine if you, I suppose, put the property up for sale?
Yeah, that's the problem here, as I said, and I'm glad you mentioned Whitegate is a nice, picturesque village, which it is. This former public house in the centre of the village, a terrible eyesore, you know, and I'm getting plenty of grief about it as the local councillor here, and my hands are tied. I've been doing all I can, and that's why I brought it to I singled it out for a motion the other day at the MD meeting, and, I want to thank Carmel Green for her reply, where they will assess it now under the Compulsory Acquisition Activation Programme, because our new CEO, Gordon Daly, we have a new girl in the council now looking at land activation, looking at every single settlement in County Clare to see what can be done. There's a lot of talk happening, from the CEO down, but I want to see action at this stage now. And rural depopulation in a lot of villages is a serious, serious issue. And the difference that even 5 houses would make, in the Killaloe MD we see Tulla, Quinn, Crusheen literally bursting at the seams with housing developments. And out here in East Clare, we need smaller housing developments and preferably affordable housing for local people to purchase a house and raise a family in the village, etc., and keep the numbers up in the national school and that type of thing. So I'm finding this particular issue very frustrating, Daragh.
And I know you say there as well that there was prior planning applications to build up to 5 houses there. Some of those, I understand, were withdrawn. And building 5 houses, most listeners will be forgiven for thinking that's not the be-all and end-all, and it might be a drop in the ocean. But especially a real rural hamlet like that, if you can bring 5 families in, keep 5 families there, that's huge.
Oh, it is. And when the new CEO was appointed, and we had a meeting with him in the MD, and he's native enough to the area, you know what I mean, in East Clare, he knows exactly what we're talking about and talking about. And I said, Gordon, our biggest issue is rural depopulation, and how do we tackle that? And this, to me, then, is one of the ways you tackle it. There's 2 issues, as I said, the dereliction, the eyesore, but plus what could be put there instead, And it's very frustrating that somebody can reside in Dublin or wherever and this property is down the country and it's, nearly forgotten about, albeit it's for sale now again. And people can look it up on daft.ie. I think the asking price might be a little bit high for an area like Whitegate, but look, that's for people who are into development to have a look at or whatever. But we're certainly crying out in Whitegate. We have the services, we have the treatment plant, we have the infrastructure is a word that's used a lot, and we just need people. We have the services. We just need people living in our area to boost numbers and for the national school and the community going forward.
Yeah, and particularly it's something that it's on the main street that everybody local is seeing every day. And I know you mentioned at the start there, closed in 94. When you are the older generation will always tell the younger about that building in its heyday, the memories maybe they used to have in there after
Lord save us. If that place could talk, as they say, Daragh, it was a centre of the village. It was a great meeting place after hurling matches, and as were all the pubs. But that one in particular had great days and great nights indeed, and lots of stories and memories. And when I started going out myself back in the day, you'd go there on a Sunday night, and sure, Lord save us, But of course, the whole thing has changed anyway. We're very fortunate to have the Half Barrel, landmark here in Whitegate, famous pub and restaurant. We're so fortunate to have that. The other pubs have closed for various reasons, not in a state of dereliction, thankfully. One of them, I suppose, might be starting to slip a bit now. Something isn't done with it shortly. But this particular one, the roof has fallen in. It's such an eyesore, as I said. I can't, unless you see it, it's hard to believe now what I'm talking about here, the state of dereliction.
Yeah, and obviously the crux of this is that the council does really appear to be taking this very seriously, because they are going to assess the property now, as Carmel Green has told you in our reply and told us in a statement as well, for compulsory acquisition, which means the council is looking to acquire it. And we've seen this in other areas, in Kilrush, for example, with the Mars Cinema. Generally what happens then is it goes out to public consultation and the community can put forward ideas for what they'd like to see it repurposed as. Pat, what's Whitegate crying out for?
Yeah, with houses, what we are crying out for, okay, in an ideal world, you'd have a nice community centre there. The GA facility in Whitegate is used by everyone for everything, and that's fine. But, it's houses we need. We have enough of everything else, if you like. And I can talk about, Mount Shannon to the same extent, a small bit of dereliction there maybe. Take the town of Scariff, for example. Scariff, Tumgraney are crying out for a private housing development, because their, numbers are falling, except for example, the hotel with a lot of Ukrainians there, and that's fine. But, to sustain places going forward, the town of Scariff has all the services, and yet there isn't a house being built. And you go over to Tulla, Crusheen or Quinn, and they're bursting at the seams with houses. So there's a big imbalance. There's a big imbalance across County Clare. I mean, east and west, you talk to any councillor from West Clare, they've the very same issues as I'm talking about with regard to rural depopulation. But the premises that's in such a state of dereliction, to me, is a no-brainer to demolish it and build 5 houses there. Particularly or preferably affordable houses. We have a number of social houses in the village, and that's fine, and they're great for the area. But local people who want to get on the property ladder, this is what government talk about, and this is what our chief executive talks about. But there's enough of talking being done. It's time for real action now. And the Derelict Sites team, led by Carmel Green, are very focused on that, because the government, I think, their headline when they launched the land activation or that scheme that she referred to was that the minister said there's a war on dereliction. So I have no sympathy whatsoever for people who have properties and they live 100 miles away and have no regard for the local community, that they let them fall into such disrepair.
Well, absolutely. We hope we can have a positive resolution to this one. Pat, before I let you go, can I put you off topic and put you on the spot for a moment? We've got a competition here in association with the Shields Motor Group on the Gort Road in Ennis. They're having an open week for the brand new showroom, and it's running from Monday the 19th to Saturday the 24th of January. So it's running up to tomorrow of this week, and we're giving away a daily prize, which is a €50 fuel voucher for the Shields' service station on the Gort Road. And the question we're asking listeners for, Pat, is: we want to know, what is your best wedding story? So you told me earlier there that if the walls in that former pub could talk, there'd be some amazing stories in Whitegate. Do you have a good wedding story for us today, Pat, to get the ball rolling on this competition?
A wedding story?
Yes, Pat.
I suppose the night of my own wedding a number of years ago, Daragh, people left the Lakeside Hotel in Killaloe, I think, and came back to this particular pub and stayed half the night there. So weddings were different that time. I suppose people went and didn't stay overnight or whatever. But gosh, you caught me on the spot there now, Daragh. But that's maybe a wedding story, given what we were just talking about.
It's no wonder you want to see that place coming back to its former glory. We do hope we can have a positive resolution. Killaloe of the Killaloe Municipal District and Whitegate Fine Gael councillor Pat Burke talking about the pub that needs to be restored and the issue of dereliction in East Clare and Clare as a whole. Pat, thanks very much for joining us on Morning Focus this morning.
Thanks very much, Daragh.